Hi there, David here, and in this video, I want to share with you my favorite technique for creating sound effects. So there's actually a lot of different ways you can create sound effects, for example, layering or using synthesis, but sometimes you just get stuck and you can't really figure out how to create a certain sound that you're looking for or you're trying to replicate or just a sound that you want to make, and this technique might just be the solution for that problem. So what I'd like to do in this video is actually show you the technique itself and then 3 different examples of how you can use it to create 3 completely different sounds, all right? So with that said, if you are new here and you haven't picked it up yet, I have a little gift for you. It is my Sound Designer's starter pack. So if you're a sound designer, I have a little free, it's a free sound pack. It's not that little, actually. There's not over 900 sound effects in there, but it's completely free and you can use it for your commercial projects or your personal projects if you want to. So if you want to grab it, it'll be free, links in the description below. All right, so let's get into our project and let's get started. All right, so here we are inside of Reaper, and what I'm going to do first is just load a sampler. This can be any sampler that you can start with. Actually, a synth is best. I'm saying sampler because this is actually a synth and sampler that you can have in here inside of Faceplant. I'm going to start with a synth, though, and just a plain sine wave. So what I'm going to aim to do for this first sound is some sort of tonal sound or, yeah, a magic sound or maybe a tonal sound, something like that. So I'm going to start here, just a plain sine wave. Right? Nothing special here. Now, what's interesting about this technique is that once you have this here, then the fun part about it is being creative in what sound effects you're going to add to this. So I like to add, I'm going to add something like portal. So this is a granular effect. It's actually a multi-effect. There's a lot of different effects in here, which is why this plugin specifically is really great for this kind of technique. So I'm just going to go for a delay here and, right? So that sounds good. Right, it's kind of adding some delay and some reverb to the sound. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to start with that. And now what I'm going to do is I am just going to start recording and just writing out whatever I'm going to play. So I'm just going to play on the black keys on my keyboard here just to get some sounds out. Let's have a listen. All right, so that might be one take here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some other plugins here. So I have this one here. This is actually, I think it's a discontinued plugin, but it's really great. So what it does is it's like a reverb, a delay. And every time there's another echo, it pitches it up or down based on what settings you have here. So here it's going up, so I'm going to leave it up. Delay, I'm going to make it a bit faster. Let's have a listen. Right, so you can see it's kind of like sparkling and going up. And the other plugin I'm just going to add here is uber loud, just so that we can get a nice, loud, even sound. I basically want it to stay loud. I don't want it to get too quiet, so that's what I'm just doing here. All right, and now the same idea here. I'm just going to print it out and see what I can get. Perfect. So I could do this for a long time. Like right now, I'm just doing a really short clip, but sometimes I'll play it out for like a minute or so and just see what kind of sounds I can get and add more effects and stuff like that. So this is kind of the fun part about being creative here is thinking about what kind of sounds that you want to make and what kind of effect you want it to have. So right now, I was thinking more of like a delay and something reverb and something tonal. So I didn't want anything that was going to change the tonality of the sound. So that's why I'm keeping to these. But if you wanted something completely different, you know, whatever effects you add on here can be pretty much anything, right? So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to export these and then I'm going to bring them back into our session and we'll go from there. All right, so I've exported these 2 sound files here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load a sampler, which I have already loaded here, and I'm just going to import one of those sound files into the sampler here. And now what I can do is I can just bring up the offset here and just play around this sample and find different kind of sounds that I might want to sample. Right, and the fun part about this is that you can play around with the release or the length of the sample that you want. And then, of course, you can add other effects like maybe I want even more delay. All right, and you can get all of these cool tonal sounds this way because that's what I'm going for, right? So some tonal sounds. But if I wanted something completely different, what I could also do is bring down, let's bring down the sustain here, and I could maybe do the decay. Let's do 150. Let's take this off. Right, and then you can get like these cool UI sounds. Maybe you want to add a delay to that. And then I could also add that plugin that I had from before as well. Here we go. All right, so this is the technique. You take a whatever sine wave, like I just use a sine wave here. It could be a square wave, any kind of waveform. It could even be a sample, and then you basically add effects to it. You print it out, bring it back to a sampler, and then you can sample it. All right, so we just did it now with a tonal sound effect. Now let's go back and let's do something completely different. I'm going to do a glitch sound effect, so let's do that next. All right, so I have it set up here. So what I did is I decided to go for a square wave this time. And then I added 2 other plugins here. One is Hysteresis. This is a free plugin by Glitch Machines and basically sounds like this. Right, you can get a lot of cool different sounds and you can randomize all the parameters here, which is why it's great for glitching. And then the other one I have here is Stutter Edit. And this is, of course, again, like a stuttering, so it's just perfect for like glitchy stuff. This is by Isotope. So let's have a listen to these now. I'm just going to record and I'm going to randomize some of the parameters here and move things around so that we get some cool glitchy sound. So let's have a listen. All right, so that is our sound. Again, same thing I'm going to do here. I'm just going to export it and bring it back in. All right, so I've exported that WAV file and I imported it back into my sampler here, turned off the effects other than uber loud, and I might actually change this one up and see what we can come up with. But let's scan through here and see what we can get. Let's see if I can change this up here. Right, you can get some cool sound like that. That's a cool glitchy sound. Another cool trick is that you can actually reverse everything and see if you can find some cool sounds like it that way. So I'm just going to reverse it here. Right, but you get the idea. You can come up with some really cool sounds this way. All right, so let me share with you just another like little quick tip here, and that is that you don't actually have to use necessarily like a synth every single time. Like I do that because it's like the most basic and plain and easiest way to get started. But if you want, you could use something like this, which is Tactic. This is by Glitch Machine, and it's a sampler. Yeah, so it's a glitchy sampler. I think it's meant to be like for drums and drum loops, creating drum loops and stuff like that. But I usually just to import like a quick sound. So you can see here, I just imported a bunch of casual game sounds, and if you randomize some of the parameters, this is what it can sound like. Right, and this is another quick way that you can create some sound files. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because generally these work better for glitches. Sometimes I'll use Ultra Loop by Twisted Tools, and Tactic also works really well. All right, so for the next sound that I wanted to create, I wanted to have something a bit more bassy. So I want something that's more bass heavy. So what I did here is added a few things. One is uber loud, and I really boosted the lows here and the mids. I also added Isotope Trash 2. This is just to kind of distort because it generally sounds better when you're distorting the low end. It just really brings it out. And then I added Portal. This is just a preset in the bass category, and I just chose Bass Invader. And here you'll notice I'm randomizing the pitch and the pump here. This is with the Reaper's built-in parameter modulation that you can have here. So I just put it so it's right in the middle. I chose LFO, random LFO, and then I made sure it's centered. So basically it's going to the right and the left. So it's going up and down. And I did that for both of these two parameters. And I did the same thing as well inside of here. This is Silo by Unfiltered Audio. And I did the same thing here. So I'm just randomizing these parameters here. And that's basically it. So let's have a listen to what we can create with this. All right, so let's export that and see what we can come up with. All right, so I imported the sample in here. I also have uber loud that I'm pushing and clipping a little bit up here. And I'm just going to add a transient shaper because I want more of an attack on these sounds. All right, so there you have it, a whole bunch of different kinds of sounds that you can create using this technique. All right, so what's cool about this technique is that you can basically be as creative as you want depending on what plugins you input. You can get a whole bunch of different kinds of sound effects that you would have never have thought of. So right now I showed like just one example, but normally when I do this, I'll print out like 3 or 4 different kinds of sounds using different plugins and different chains of plugins to see what kind of sounds I can get, and then I'll import that back into the sampler and see what I can do with it. So yeah, it's very flexible and it's very creative based on what plugins you use, how you use them, and in what combination you use them. So you never know what you're going to get. So let's talk a little bit about some of the pros and the cons. Of course, let's start with the cons here. So obviously one of the cons is that you kind of never know what you're going to get. So if you're looking for a specific type of sound, like yes, you can definitely do it this way, especially if you know like something tonal. Well, okay, then you kind of know where to work around. Like, okay, you're going to want to keep something that keeps the tonality of the sound. Maybe you want some reverb and delay so that you don't lose that pitch, the center of the pitch, and then you can play around with that. If you want something more glitchy, of course you can go that way. But if you're looking to like for something like, let's say a sword sound, like obviously you can't create a sword sound using this technique, but anything like sci-fi definitely works. Anything futuristic, UI, retro, 8-bit, you know, like all of these sounds, like you can easily create those sounds using this technique. Also, like gunshots and sci-fi gun sound effects, like that's how I basically create all of my gunshots is using this technique. Like it's super powerful, super flexible for that. All right, another one of the cons is that it can be a bit time-consuming, especially if you're on a tight deadline. Doing it this way, like you might not actually have the time to do it. So that's one little downfall of this technique. And of course, the last thing is that you might not get the exact sound that you're looking for. So if you have something specific in mind, you might not get it, and like you can get close to it, but might not be exactly there. So, but let's talk about some of the pros, because in my opinion, some of the pros outweigh some of the cons of using this technique. Like I said before, though, obviously it's not good for every kind of sound. I don't use it all the time. It's just my favorite way to do it because you can just pick it up and you kind of never know what you're going to get, and it can be a really fun way to just generate sounds and get ideas. So one of the pros is exactly that. You can just generate a ton of sounds, and it's always going to be new. It's always going to be different, and you can get a ton of ideas doing it this way. Another pro is that if you don't know how to create a specific sound effect, usually something that's more not like based in reality, like I said before, like not a sword sound or like not a wood impact or something like that, you know, like if it's something that's more sci-fi or, you know, 8-bit or retro, like this can be the technique to help you kind of go in the direction that you're looking for. So if you're looking at a certain sound, like let's say an 8-bit sound, like yeah, you could probably use a synth and try to program it and get the exact sound that you want. But you're doing it this way, if you can kind of determine the characteristics of the sound that you want, you want it to be tonal. Maybe you want it to, maybe it's something that's noise based. If you're using something noise based, use noise as your sample. But using those characteristics, you can be like, okay, I kind of know, maybe I need a square wave, keep it tonal, and then you can kind of play around with that, and then make sure that you keep those whenever you're generating your sound files, right? So it can lead you in the right direction. And like I said before, just the pros about this, it's always going to be fun. It's always going to you have the basically unlimited creative potential, and you're always going to be doing something different. You're never going to get the exact same sounds, and it's easy to generate hundreds, if not thousands, of sounds using this technique, which is sometimes what I do. Like I'll generate a whole bunch of sounds, put them in a folder, and then from that folder, then I can start pulling out some of these sounds and then layering them with my other stuff, or just putting out them through something like S-Layer or MVK Create, and just kind of seeing what I can create using all those sounds layered together, right? So yeah, so it gives you a whole bunch of creative opportunity when you're doing it this way. All right, so that is the technique. That is my favorite way of creating sound effects. Let me know what your favorite way is. Is there some unique way that you like to create sound effects? I know, of course, the common ones are like layering or synthesis, but if you have something unique or an original, I'd love to learn and see what you guys use. And also just a reminder to grab that free sound pack, the Sound Designer Starter Pack that I have for you. It's absolutely free. Links will be in the description. So that's it for now. If you want to see more layering techniques or techniques for creating sound effects, I actually created a video called my 4 layering techniques, and I'll put it up here in the cards above if you want to see it. And it's exactly that. I just basically go into detail about 4 different kinds of layering techniques you can use to create sound effects. So if you want to learn how to create more sound effects and different ways of doing that, that video will be for you. All right. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.